A broken carbon rod and a hole in the toe box. This is the Adios Pro 3 after 200 miles. So welcome back to a long-term shoe review, the Adidas Adios Pro 3 after 200 miles. Excited to share my thoughts on this shoe. A shoe that's crept back into the rotation and has not left. I have found a really good use for this shoe and I'm going to explain all shortly. As with all long-term shoe reviews, we'll talk about how I've been using them, the wear and tear, and of course will I keep using them moving forwards even though it's broken and we have a hole in the toe box. So without further ado, let's dive in and start with the wear and tear. So I'll explain the hole in the toe box in a second. Let's go through the general wear and tear of the shoe. So far it's holding up really well after 200 miles. Now what tends to happen with super shoes is obviously the foam doesn't last quite as long as in a daily trainer or something a little bit more durable. Therefore, for me, and I know a lot of you guys as well, we relegate them to be training shoes, and that's what I've done with this shoe. I raced in it once, didn't really enjoy racing in it. There's better racing shoes out there for me, so I just relegated it to a training shoe, but I've always suffered with sizing in Adidas shoes, and that's why there is now a hole in the toe box, which I made myself. But in terms of the rest of the upper, it's just holding up really well. No snags, no frays, no tears, nothing. The midsole is still really good after 200 miles. I've said it before and I'll say it again, Light Strike Pro is one of my favourite midsole compounds out there. It is so comfortable. It is on the firmer side. I prefer that. I find it more stable than some of these other softer materials. And what I love about this shoe is the fact that it feels more natural than some of the other carbon plate super shoes that we use with the rigid carbon plates in them. The carbon fibre rods just provide a more natural flexing feeling inside the shoe, which I really enjoy. Grip is still really good in the shoe as well, even though it's had over 200 miles in it. You can see the dents where the carbon rods are all down here. It's still really grippy. I've run in wet conditions, dry conditions, and it's holding up really well so far. Now, I've always been really torn with this shoe because I've wanted to use it more than I have, but I've just never been able to because of sizing. So with Adidas, what tends to happen is it goes 12.5, 13.5, 14.5, so on and so forth. Sometimes in some of their newer shoes, they are doing 13s, 14s, and half size increments. But I find that I have to go a 13.5 as a minimum. In most other shoe brands, I'm a 13, and even going a 13.5 can sometimes be a bit tight, and that's what I found in this shoe. It was just a bit too tight. My big toe was too close to the end, and on any type of undulating terrain, anywhere where I went downhill, uphill, my toe would just hit against the end, and it wasn't very comfortable. I get a very sore big toe at the end. And so this shoe got shelved for a long period of time and I just was frustrated because it is such a good shoe. I love everything else about it. I love the upper, I even love the heel counter. A lot of people complain where they get rubbing. All I do is just fold that inside on itself and that sorts the issue out. So I get no heel rubbing, nothing whatsoever. So I thought to myself the other day, do you know what? I've got this incredible shoe that I paid money for. I think I bought it for around £150 when it was on offer, and it's just sat there and I love it and I want to use it more. So I decided to cut a hole where my big toe is. So I basically sliced down there, sliced there, peeled that back, and now it is great. I don't get any issues whatsoever. I can feel my big toe hit the end, but it gets no rubbing whatsoever. This gives more flexion and it just works really well. And that's meant that over the last few weeks, I've managed to take this thing from just over 100 miles all the way up to 200 and beyond. And I guess the final section of this wear and tear should be all about this snapped carbon rod. If I can just put it to the microphone, there, you can probably hear it. It's right around there. Literally under the midfoot of this left shoe. It went around 20 miles ago, so around 180-ish miles in my last run. I've been double thresholding in it, which we'll talk about shortly. And yeah, I felt a pop under the foot, it snapped, and then every single step after that it's clicked. The next run, I think it did it, actually it must have been 3 runs ago, because the run before this one that I've just taken it on, another bit snapped. I heard it go, and I think there's another weak point just a bit further up here. So I assume now that it's weak, it's just going to break apart, but it's made no odds to the ride. It makes no difference. It still feels really good. Had a couple of people message me on Instagram. They suffered the same thing in and around similar mileages between 100 and 200 miles. So if you think about it, if you're investing in a super shoe and you want something to last a long time, if you are getting these carbon rods breaking around this time, it's not great for durability, is it? I know it doesn't affect necessarily the feel of the shoe, but it might marginally affect the performance. Who knows? For me, it's just a training shoe now, so it just doesn't matter. But for a lot of people, it might. So just bear that in mind, yeah, when it comes to the wear and tear. So let's move on to how I've been using the shoe. It's been a double threshold shoe. That's simply what it has been. It has been absolutely incredible. Now, what I've been looking for in a double threshold day shoe is something that's going to give me good recovery, which I feel this foam does. It's what super shoes do. They offer good recovery benefits because of the way they're set up, the stack height, the midsole foams, just a bit kinder on the legs. I love the fact that, as I just mentioned in a previous clip, this is a more natural feel with the carbon rods. I try and avoid carbon plated shoes as much as possible in training. I do test shoes and I will use them here and there, but I do find they aggravate my calf and Achilles if I use them too much. So these carbon rods give a much more natural feel. They flex on each metatarsal, and for me, it works really well. So that coupled with the Light Strike Pro, which is really great, and look at the slab of this stuff under the forefoot, and I can confirm that after 200 miles, it's still feeling really good and really responsive. So I was looking for something on these bigger days that was gonna look after the legs, but also give me some good performance benefits and good recovery benefits. And that's where this came in. That's why I just went, you know what? Let's sort this out. Let's cut a hole in the toe box. Let's take it out there. Let's see if we can use it. And on that first run, when I took it out there after cutting that hole, I absolutely loved it. It made the world of difference, and I have not put this thing down for double threshold days for my long runs as well. That's the other place it's come in. So on the weekend, although my long runs aren't huge, I'm doing 70 to 80 minutes at the moment. This thing is taking that as well because I'm doing them at a moderate intensity, so not quite marathon effort, not quite easy effort, somewhere in the middle, and it's just holding up really well. It's doing those really well, so it's absolutely racking up some serious mileage at the moment. So I guess the final question is, will I keep using this shoe moving forwards? And the answer is absolutely yes. It's showing no signs of deterioration in terms of performance. Obviously, there's a few kind of bits and pieces on the shoe that you can just minutely see that's slowly breaking down, just like the little creases where the rods are and things like that. A tiny bit of wear here, but I mean, after 200 miles, and we know that super shoes aren't built to last forever, I'm just really impressed with the build quality of this shoe. At 200 miles, it's just going so strong. I really feel like it's just going to fly past 300, to be completely honest with you. And yes, it's frustrating that the carbon rod has broken and that I've had to cut a hole in it, but that's just a sizing issue. If you get the right size in this shoe, I really feel like you can make a good investment in it. And actually, this shoe is often on discount because we know that the Adidas Pro 4 is imminent. We've seen photos of it floating around there. When? Who knows? But we've seen pictures about it, which looks very exciting. Definitely one I would love to check out, especially with how well this one has done for me. So yeah, it's going to get plenty more long runs and double threshold workouts, anything where I'm going to be out there time on feet, looking for some good sort of pace, but also get some good recovery benefits of it. Definitely nothing easy or top end workouts. For that sort of stuff, the top end workouts, I'm using very minimalist type of shoes where I like to do all of the work. But on these bigger days where I'm clocking 20, 21 miles in total, this thing is absolutely ideal. So there we go, those are my thoughts on the Adidas Adios Pro 3 after 200 miles, just doing really well. And the one thing I would leave this video on, just a note, is that I see a lot of pros when they're doing double threshold training and these longer workouts, they use super shoes, and I've always been relatively hesitant to do that, mainly because I get calf issues and Achilles issues when I use shoes with carbon plates. But this thing has been a real game changer for me. And what I would say to you guys is, if you are doing higher mileage or you're doing some longer, more intense days, but you suffer the same as me, where if you use plated shoes too often, your weaknesses get exposed basically, I would seriously consider picking this shoe up, because I know that it does pop up on discount, and I know then you can use discount codes on top of that. So I've been told you can get this shoe for very close to £100, and I'll be honest with you, I'd be quite tempted to pick up another pair if I could get them for £100. I'd just grab them, cut a hole in the toe box and use them. It'd be absolutely fantastic, and I genuinely recommend that if you're doing that type of training, or if you're looking for a shoe that's going to give you good recovery benefits, good speed, good responsiveness, but don't want a super soft midsole, something slightly firmer, then this is definitely a shoe that you should check out. Very, very impressed with this thing so far, and delighted that it's still going after 200 miles. Delighted that I could bring you this review and give you this update. So that's it from me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do consider giving it a like, share it with your friends, and of course subscribe to the channel for weekly running content, and I'll see you on the next one.